Hello, social justice class. It's me, Dr. April Warren-Grice, again, and I'm here in St. Louis at my mom's house. Just a little bit about me before I get into the topic for today is I also work for the Midwest Equity Assistance Center at Kansas State University, and we provide free professional development for K through 12 schools in Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. And so with that, I do some traveling, particularly to St. Louis, since I'm from St. Louis, just trying to help those school districts. So here I am, and since I'm from St. Louis, it works out. I get to stay with my mom and see some of my family and friends. So that's what I've been doing here. For the past couple days, I planned on uploading a video on Sunday, and I realized that there was something going on with my eye, and so I was like, okay, I'll do it Monday. And then Monday, I woke up and my eye was swollen. You may be able to tell right now that one of my eyes is a little bit swollen. You're probably going to pay attention to that now since I mentioned it. Oh well, I'm not editing this video because I'm just going to flow as if I were in class for real. So anyway, yeah, so my eye's been swollen and, it's just now going back to its normal size. And so I am here. But what I want to talk to you all about today is positionality. I know that you've written your papers on positionality. You should have looked at the videos as well as completed the readings. And so positionality is essentially just thinking about how we go about navigating the world, how we see the world based on who we are, based on all of our identities. So whether that's race, class, gender, sexual orientation, religion, short, tall, all of those things play a factor. And so I wanted to share a little bit about my positionality and an experience that I had because I find that connection is often through storytelling, so people can connect with one another. And so in an effort to connect with you all, I wanted to, again, to share a story that happened with me recently. It was Saturday night, actually. I went out with some friends, and it was, I think, about 7 or 8 of us, 2 males out of the group. All of us were Black Americans, and we were just having dinner. And I don't know, the topic came up about the first topic was about Donald Trump. And so with that conversation, everyone was pretty much on board, and they pretty much had the same opinion. So that was a pretty easy conversation. Eventually, the topic switched, and it turned to Jaden Smith, son of Will and Jada Smith, the actors. And it was about him modeling and taking pictures for Louis Vuitton. And he wore what is considered women's clothes. And so the topic was on Jaden and, what did this mean? What did this, what's going on with this essentially? Was it wrong? Was it right? What is it doing to our kids? And it just went a whole lot of ways. And eventually the conversation then turned to transgender folks, and it was just a really interesting conversation. And now in this group, out of all of the people that were in this group, I am the only one that has stated that I am a member of the LGBTQ community. And it was really interesting, and I guess I should say a little bit awkward. And I'm trying to learn to just listen more. And so I was doing a lot of listening, but then eventually somebody asked, he was like, okay, Dr. Warren G., professor, what's your opinion on these issues of gender identity and trans issues? Because some of them were saying, well, I just don't understand why gay men, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't understand why they have to be so feminine acting. And, why do they have to do so much? If I want to just pick up a glass of water, why don't I just pick up a glass of water? And so then it was also the comments about, well, why does Jaden have to, wear women's clothes, and I wouldn't let my son wear women's clothes, and, lots of those statements. And so some of my comments were, uh, expression, is an individual choice, and people, some of it is innate and some of it's learned, and no one questions, or it, what I tried to do is I tried to relate the conversation to issues of race, because everybody at that table understood racial oppression. And so I was like, well, what if we were to say, well, why do all black people do this? And why do all black people do that? Some of them were open to the idea and some of them were not. And they just, well, that's different. But then also with the transgender issue, they were just like, well, I just wouldn't know how to take them. I just wouldn't, I mean, if I saw, so because I posed the question, I said, well, what if there was a transgender person that was F to M and who looked as like a man, but was pregnant? And so their response, well, I mean, I would treat them with respect, but I just wouldn't know how to treat them because, as a person in the medical field, I'm just looking at the physical activity, and so, or the physical being, and with that, I see a man, but then when I go down, I'm seeing ovaries, and so I just wouldn't know how to take them. I'm just looking physically. And so my comment was then, that could simply, also be related to issues of race, and some white racists might say, well, I'm just looking physically, and as a black person, I just don't think, or this is what I think about black people. So that conversation was, again, it was very interesting, and yeah, I felt microaggressed, and I made sure that I mentioned that, I said people in marginalized communities sometimes don't want to always be the ones that have to teach you things. And so I said, just like I got Google, you have Google. So you could look some things up, because they, some folks had questions. And but I did feel microaggressed because, some of them were saying, well, I mean, I don't really care, but not in my house. Or I don't really care, but they shouldn't, some people, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And so it was really interesting. But what I learned about myself, and that's the important part for this whole conversation, is that, one, I'm learning that I'm not taking things as personally as I used to, as I'm moving along in this social justice, moving along the social justice street, as I'm getting further down, where I used to get really personal and I used to try to convince people. But what I'm finding is, when people speak, it really is a projection of who they are. And when people speak, it's more about them than about the person or the group that they're really talking about. And for a long time, that was very hard for me to distinguish. And I mean, it still is. Even just in my own family, like, if my sister and we get into an argument, I take things personal. And so I'm learning how not to take things so personal, and instead recognize that, what they're saying is more about who they are and about their reality, as opposed to being a personal attack on me. Even if it is a personal attack on me, it's really about them. So I learned that. I also learned that I'm becoming a better listener, and when I'm listening more, I learn more. So that was pretty cool. Because, as an educator, we can talk a lot. Former English teacher, I can go. What else did I learn? Also, within the group, there was definitely one ally who had some training on LGBTQ issues, and so she did a lot of talking and clarifying and using examples, and that felt really good, where I didn't have to be the go-to person, and so that was really cool. There was another person, and she was open to learning, and so she was like, "Yeah, I guess we just have to have more conversations like this, because it's just not, it's something that we don't all think about or talk about." And, which brings, me to positionality and our own blind spots. So for quite some time, I didn't identify with the LGBT community. And so it was a blind spot for me. In addition, I'm able-bodied, and so um, that sometimes is a blind spot for me. However, again, as I'm moving down the street for social justice, I'm learning to keep those always in the forefront as I'm moving about the street. So even now, when I go to a building, one of the first things that I think about is, if I were in a wheelchair, how would I get into this building? Or if I were deaf, how would I listen to this? Like, even for this video, there are no captions or subtitles. So I'm going to have to make sure that I get this subtitled just so I can be equitable. But I think about those things. And although, not although, but I don't always think about them immediately, but I try to keep those things at least on my radar. And at least, when I'm pointing them out in conversation with other people, I'm quick to bring them up. But sometimes in my own personal life, like even with this video, I didn't think about that until now. So I'm going to have to try to do that. So it may not be subtitled on this first video, but I will try to get that taken care of. So that's positionality, and I want to know what you learned as you were going through your completing the privilege walk and the positionality paper and engaging in the readings and the videos.